Hey folks, welcome back to the Lone Pine Tarot. For today's pick a card reading, we have another topic that was suggested by the very awesome @Oriel Arts, who so generously left a lovely comment underneath one of my community posts suggesting topics for January, and this is one of them. So big thanks to you @Oriel Arts once again for suggesting a great reading topic. I love these types of topics for tarot, doing some more like deep dive, maybe a little bit more in-depth readings, right? So just a forewarning though, as you can tell by the title of this video, it's called Breaking Negative Family Patterns and Ancestors' Advice. So this reading may not be a very positive one, at least in terms of talking about the negative family patterns. So for those of you who don't really want a negative reading right now, at least in terms of content, feel free to, I have a playlist on my channel called Positivity Boost Readings. Those are always 100% positive, not talking about dark stuff from the past, right? As always with readings, I put things as gently and as kindly as I can, but I like doing these deeper dive readings because I feel tarot is a great tool for helping reflect and grow and heal from maybe things like this, like negative family patterns, for example. So just a bit of a forewarning, just so anyone's not blindsided by the topic or content of this reading. And of course, like I said, I always keep it as gentle as I can, though. So, it's not going to be anything too intense, but just in case. So without further ado, let us pick our piles. For pile number ones, today I have the card Transition. For pile number twos, I have the card Nature. And for my pile number threes, I have the card Expression. So after you've meditated on these piles and decided which one calls out the most to you, as always, the timestamps are down in both the description box and the top pinned comment underneath the video. Click on that timestamp for your reading, and I will see you in our discussion about breaking negative family patterns and ancestors' advice to you on how to do so. Bye. Hello, my lovely pile number ones. Welcome to your pick a card reading today that is all about breaking negative family patterns as well as ancestors' advice on this topic. As you recall, the card used to pick your pile was Transition. We have a figure here standing in almost like a gateway, archway, doorway, perfect symbolism for transition, as doors and gateways are symbolic of moving from one phase of something to another, not even just with the imagery of the archway here too, but from winter in the background to the foreground, which is spring with the flowers. But before I get too deep in with that, let's get your other cards on the table. As always, I have two sections for this reading. First, we're going to talk about what the negative family pattern is, or if there are multiple, what they are, I guess I should say, grammatically correct. And then the second section with these cards is going to be advice from your ancestors on how to break that negative family pattern. And then, of course, we'll draw some tarot cards too. So your advice cards go down here with me. And then let's first talk about what this negative family pattern is that your ancestors want to speak to you about today. So first up, from the Lantern Oracle, you received number 25, Emotional Energy. Emotions are messengers to be met with appropriate attention, action, and gratitude. Okay, so I want to get the other cards on the table, but there might be something about withholding your emotions, feeling like you have to stuff them down here due to family patterns. Let's see what else pops out, though. And then your Archetypes card, I'm only going to read the Shadow attribute because we are talking about the negative side of this family pattern. You received Bully. So Shadow attribute conceals deep fears behind verbal or physical abuse. So that's kind of like what it says on the tin, and that's why in the intro I did warn that this content of this reading might be a little bit heavier. So I think pile number ones, there might have been some verbal or physical abuse in this family pattern we're talking about. Maybe someone that was a bit of a bully, or maybe more than one as a family pattern, it kind of passed down. Okay, and then I also have a oracle deck I haven't used before. I've had this one for a while. It's called the Dark Mirror Oracle, and you receive number 15, Masquerade. Okay, so right off the bat, pile number ones, I know we talked about kind of maybe stuffing feelings down, someone maybe being abusive in some way. That combined with Masquerade, it's almost like there's a family pattern of people really hiding their true emotions, and some family members feeling like they can't speak out in some way, and other family members like hiding it's like a lot of your family with this negative family pattern, from what I'm seeing from these cards, like hide under masks, hence the masquerade card here. Like, for example, the people that are victims in this situation, in this family, from this negative pattern, with emotional energy here, it's like they had to kind of hide, or if you're one of the victims, you had to kind of hide the way you actually felt about something. Like I almost get the sense intuitively of a family that's like everything looks gleaming perfect on the surface, but underneath there's a lot of things that are kind of not so perfect. Like there's a thin veneer of it looks like a functional family on the outside, but there are problems underneath. I mean, which is true basically for every family, but I think especially with your family here, at least with this reading, there's a lot of masking things. That combined with like bully here with the shadow attribute about verbal or physical abuse and concealing deep fears behind it. Like concealing deep fears with masquerade here, it's like either one or more members of your family, there was a passed down pattern of having a true feeling of some sort or a trauma somewhere deep down, but it externalized as abusing others. So it's almost like there's the one aspect of being in tune with or not being in tune with emotions and being abusive instead and taking it out that way. On the bully side, or the people that enacted the abuse, I guess is how I would put it. But then also here with emotional energy, it's like the people that were victims in this situation by the bullies, they felt like they kind of had to mask how they truly felt deep down. And it's, I almost get gaslighting here too, especially because with masquerade, it's gaslighting is bullying basically, or abuse masked as like it's made to seem like it's a lot lighter than it actually is. Like, for example, a lot of times with gaslighting, you might have had a family member that had issues where they would say something nasty, for example, and then you'd be like, well, hey, that kind of hurt. And they'd be like, oh, no, I didn't say that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's almost like fooling yourself or masking what they said to make it look better than it actually was. So I'm getting that kind of vibe here, maybe some gaslighting too. Like I said in the intro of this video, kind of a darker topic, but I do feel like tarot, on top of, therapy as a combination, of course, I'm not psychologically trained, in psychology, but tarot combined with stuff like therapy, I think, is a great tool to talk about and kind of heal from this stuff, So I don't know exactly where you're at with your family pile number ones, but I do see these issues popping up here so far just with your oracle cards of this negative family pattern. So a lot of times when people abuse, they were abused themselves. Not that that excuses what they did, of course, because you always have the choice to take what was heaped upon you and not to give it to others. But unfortunately, I think with this family pattern pile ones, I do see one or more members of your family through a family pattern passing down that trait of taking out things through abuse on other people based on their own hurts deep inside. So before I continue, let's get your tarot cards on the desk, though. That's just what I'm seeing with your oracle cards, though. Spirit, can you give me about 3 or 4 cards for pile number ones explaining what the negative family pattern is? Either expanding on the one we already talked about or telling me about some... Oh, I can take that many cards. Expanding on nuances about it or other negative family patterns. Okay, let's see here. Let's pick this one. We have the Knight of Wands. Okay. People being a little bit too brash or fiery with their words is how I would read that in this type of reading for Knight of Wands. Knights are cards of taking action, and Wands is fire. So that's sometimes in a negative way when it comes to personalities. Wands or fire energy is about someone who egotistical. Ego is one attribute associated with fire and tarot, or with the Wands, I should say. Someone a little bit egotistical, taking it out on other people. Family pattern of that. We also have the Nine of Wands, lots of fire energy. Nine of Wands is feeling kind of beaten down, feeling like you have to keep going with determination, and that just makes life that much harder because there is so much of that fire energy being targeted at people from people that do have the abuse issue of taking it out on others, right? Let's see what else pops out here. We also have the Fool reversed, taking risks. Maybe some risky behaviors as well as a negative family pattern here, pile number ones. The Fool reversed is all about being careful about where you tread. Especially because the traditional depiction of the Fool is someone walking off of or almost walking off of a cliff, so it's like a risk card, right? Not paying attention to things. That could also be an expansion, though, upon, like I was saying before with your Masquerade card, how, like, the risks of this negative behavior and or, like, the negative effects of this behavior from the family members that did, you know, abuse others, I'm seeing here. It seems like it's almost like everyone knew it was going on, or everyone could point it out, but no one ever really said anything. Like I said before, it's like that thin veneer of pretending everything is okay, but it's not. So I also get the sense too here with emotional energy. We'll see what your advice cards say later, but it's like, too, especially with gaslighting, it's like you're not even really understanding, like, maybe not even knowing like what the abuse was at first, and you know, maybe it took you to adulthood to really realize what that's what it was. I know that happens a lot in situations with gaslighting, because it's almost like conditioning someone to not even knowing that it's something abusive or something negative, right? Yeah, hiding emotions deep down, risky behaviors. That could have been a lot of this abuse, over generational patterns and you know, things that pass down. Sometimes it manifested as people becoming bullies. Sometimes it manifested as people being risky with their behaviors. Could be, you know, addictions. Could be just not caring about themselves, etc. That type of thing. But yeah, it's like a blend of, I see one half of people being like egotistical here with the Knight of Wands. Those usually were the people that were the bullies, I assume, in your family. And then the people on the other end that were on the receiving end of it with the Nine of Wands, especially, like, having to endure a lot, like, because life is hard enough as it is, of course, just in general, but when you have a family where there is pattern, or excuse me, where there are patterns like this, it can make living that much harder, because with the Nine of Wands, it's just, like, having to bear till the end. It's almost kind of like, if I were to describe the energy of the Nine of Wands, it's like being in a besieged city, like, completely surrounded and having to hold out. It's like a toughness card, like having to endure a lot. Yeah, and then risky behaviors with the Fool. Spirit, could you give me one more card here for pile number ones, explaining what the negative behaviors are in this family? Or the negative pattern? Oh, that one's popping out. Okay. Let's see what that one is. We have the Five of Cups. Yeah, a lot of grief. This is the grieving card. It can also mean alcoholism. That might be the risky behaviors I was talking about before. Cups can mean, at least when we're talking about negative patterns of behavior, it can mean, yeah, like drinking. Drinking too much, maybe a negative family pattern of alcoholism. You know, I have that on one side of my family personally, so I kind of understand how that can affect, you know, definitely a risky behavior. Not caring about self-health, you know, especially, well, the liver with alcoholism, right? But other things too. Driving drunk, stuff like that. Just really risky behaviors surrounding alcohol I'm seeing here with the Five of Cups. Could also mean other drugs, pile number ones, but like I said, with the cups, it generally tends to be like alcohol, because it's something you drink, right? Yeah. So to summarize pile number ones, there is kind of a twofold message here of the negative family patterns I'm seeing based on these cards for your family. Number one, generations of, like, abuse being kind of passed down from one to another, and unfortunately a lot of times when people are abused, they can either take the route of being the victim, or they can become the bully themselves. At least that's often what I've seen in my own life with my experiences, right? So there's the one hand of family members that have become the bullies, right, from this abuse that was passed down with this negative family pattern, you know, concealing deep fears behind verbal or physical abuse, right? But almost in kind of a passive aggressive, masking it way, hence the masquerade, almost like gaslighting. I don't see like physical abuse here, but that could be a potential for your family, as this is generating, everyone's gonna be a little bit different, right? And then also masking like emotions. Like, it's almost like it seemed so normal because it happens so much, or it was just a common thing. Because a lot of times when you're growing up in your family, negative family patterns, we don't necessarily understand at first, especially as children, but even as adults, it can take us time and therapy to really understand the effects it had on us, or even what was the negative part, especially with things that are more subtle, like gaslighting, right? And then I also see patterns of, especially I think with the bullying, abuse thing that was kind of passed down here with the Knight of Wands, ego, maybe clashing egos a lot with the people that were, like, took it out on others. The victims being very kind of tired and worn out here with the Nine of Wands, and then the Fool reversed with the Five of Cups, especially is risky behaviors, especially with alcoholism. I'm seeing here pile number 1s. So, and getting back to your pile leader card here with transitions, I think this to me almost says that I think your generation, whoever is watching this at this time of the video, you're on the cusp of breaking these family patterns. So I think it's finally something about to be lifted here. It might have been more of an issue with the generations right before yours, or maybe up to a few back within your family. I'm seeing here with transition, because transition is like a doorway, like you're right on the cusp of that winter into the spring, or the dawning after the night is another metaphor you could use. Like just there. So maybe that's one of the reasons why you came to this video, is because you're wondering, is this the last generation, or was a generation before mine the last generation where these things that are toxic are finally going to die out? And I do see that there with your transition card being on the cusp of something, right? Being in the doorway. Okay, well, let's get to your advice cards from your ancestors pile number 1s. Yeah, so I think for your family, some of them manifested it in bullying others. Some of them manifested in just trying to get along, but being unfortunately victims of this behavior. And some of your family members manifested it in addiction with alcoholism specifically. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm seeing here. Okay, and let us pick up our cards here. We'll leave your pile leader on the desk, of course, as always, as the leader of the reading. Okay, let's get to your advice cards, pile number 1s from your ancestors. So we have your surrender card. You received surrender to receiving support and love. Allow the love and support of others in rather than trying to handle everything yourself. This can take the pressure off and simultaneously nurture you. So that's one piece of advice from your ancestors on breaking this negative family pattern, pile number 1s. I don't know if some of you, or maybe people in your family, struggle with receiving love because of this abuse. A lot of times, like I said, I'm not trained in psychology, so someone trained in psychology, like a psychiatrist or therapist, probably can speak more eloquently on this topic, but at least to my understanding, a lot of times when we have been abused, sometimes it's hard for us to accept love depending on how it manifests. So that is one piece of advice here. Let's look at your other cards. Your angel advice card here is do the work. So that's another card of active energy here. I think, like I said, with your transitions card, your generation is on the cusp in your family of breaking these patterns. I think you're the ones finally, maybe the last generation struggling with it, and or the first generation that finally broke this pattern. But with do the work, it's also a card of keep going. It's not a card of finger wagging of, oh, you need to do more. It's more just like keep going, keep working on it. So I get the sense with this that your ancestors are telling you that whatever you're doing now, trying to break through these negative family patterns, keep going with that, keep doing that work, right? And then your healing spirits oracle is happiness is freedom from fear. Okay. Once again, I've had a lot of really recurring cards with my readings lately across different topics. I always say this too, if you had a different reading from me, from one of my videos where you got this card in that reading too, that could be a synchronicity for you, pile number 1s. But yeah, happiness is freedom from fear. And then I do have a tarot card from the Pastoral Tarot. You received the Moon. I kind of like to use this deck as an oracle because it's more of a landscape, it's bigger. But so the Moon, what is a wolf and what is a dog? What's a danger and what isn't? So probably maybe a fear of receiving support and love here, like I said. Pile number 1s. It could be because there is some trouble distinguishing between what is real love and what is just might be opening ourselves up to vulnerability, especially in situations where people have been abused. To my understanding from personal experience, sometimes it's hard to receive love. Sometimes it's hard to, almost like we don't trust ourselves to know what is love and what is opening ourselves up to more abuse is how I would put that. So that's with the moon, it's like the card of illusions, understanding the difference between what is love and what is not. Okay, and then I'm sorry, your cards are going to be covered just a little bit here as I pull out your other tarot cards. And I did shuffle these between the sections. So, Spirit, could you give me a few cards of advice from the ancestors of pile number 1 on breaking this negative family pattern? Or these patterns, I should say, because there's more than one, it seems. Okay, let's pick out maybe 3 or 4. We have the Hanged Man perspectives. Yep, different perspectives. How you see the world, how you see love, how you see family. Okay. And then we have, let's see here, the 6 of Wands reversed. Cherishing your victories more. Think about more of how far you've come and how far your family has come already. 6 of Wands reversed is normally I would read that as a lack of victory, but in this type of reading I would read it as focusing more on where victories have already been gained. Maybe there's a little bit of a tendency to focus on the negative, not in like a, you know, like I said, not a finger wagging away from your ancestors, but a lot of times growth can be expedited even more, or healing can be expedited even more when we recognize how far we've already come, because it gives us the confidence to understand or know that, hey, like, look how far I've already come, I can do this, or like we can break through this, right? And let me get one more card on the table here. You receive the 5 of Pentacles, which is either poverty or issues with authority not treating you well. That can be the double meaning of the 5 of Pentacles. Okay, so pile number 1 is advice for breaking these patterns of, you know, like I said, potentially abuse, gaslighting, alcoholism was one thing I was seeing for some of you, right? Number 1, surrender to receiving support and love. Like I said when I first pulled that card out, that card is all about being open to accepting love from others. It may be that people in your family or you yourself struggle with receiving love because of this negative family pattern having an effect on you, you know, especially either in childhood or even to this day. That's still a struggle in your family, though I do see, I think, with your transition card that your generation is on the cusp of fixing this family pattern. Keep doing what you're doing with do the work here, like we talked about earlier with your angel card. Your ancestors are encouraging you to keep going the way you're going in anything that you're doing to try to help heal from this. Same thing with the rest of your family members. Keeping up hope that this will be broken. Yeah. Also earlier, and I know this is technically in the section of your reading describing what the negative family pattern was, but we did have the emotional energy card. Here, I'll pull it out again. The Lantern Oracle has great advice for stuff like this, kind of more shadow work type things. Emotions are messengers to be met with appropriate attention, action, and gratitude. So pay attention to your emotions, pile number 1, especially if you're in a situation where maybe gaslighting is still an issue in this family pattern. A lot of times you can tell what gaslighting is because of the way it makes you feel. Even though on the surface it might be like whoever is doing it might be trying to convince you that it's not gaslighting, because that's the whole point of gaslighting, is making you feel like you're crazy, right? Because that's the way that, unfortunately, that how it works, right? But paying attention to how it makes you feel is usually a great indicator as to whether or not it was intended that way, or if someone's, you know, trying to gaslight you, I guess is how I would put it. So yeah, pay attention to your emotions. Pay attention to the way that words make you feel from family members that do, maybe if they still unfortunately participate in behaviors like that, right? Let's see what other messages. Yeah, the moon, illusions. So the moon is interesting because, like I said, I think it's an indicator that maybe there's still some struggle with, because of things like gaslighting, it can make us vulnerable to not really knowing what is honest and what is not, even with people who aren't the ones that did the gaslighting in the first place, because it kind of trains your brain, to my understanding, in the way where, because a lot of your formative relationships, especially in your family, early on, form the way that you accept love or interact with others as you get older, right? So I think there might be a pattern of not being able to really distinguish reality from illusion in terms of relationships in people's intentions. Though with the moon, though, I almost see this as advice from your ancestors to trust your intuition more with it, especially like with do the work, keep doing what you're doing, and especially trusting your intuition with surrendering to receiving support and love. So I think you've already done a lot of work in this area, pile number 1, or other people in your family have as well. It's just, like I said, after a long time of dealing with things like this, sometimes it really does feel like it's hard to to know the difference between reality and illusion, like, because that's the whole message of the moon. So I guess in summary, pile ones, your ancestors are saying with this moon card, to trust your intuition more when it comes to knowing what is real and what is not, or what was meant the way that it was meant, or, you know, when it comes to receiving love, you know, there might be an inclination to always mistrust offers of love and support because of this background of pattern. um so they're saying, you know, not everything is an illusion, right? Not everything is an illusion of love. Sometimes it really is real, and receiving love and support in our lives can make it that much easier, not just for you, but also for the other person who is offering that love and support, because then they also feel like they're connecting to you, right? They also feel, you know, that can like strengthen relationships if the love and the support is accepted, right? Because, you know, unfortunately, there are people, I think, here in your family that maybe primed other people in your family that were the victims of, maybe not trusting love. uh, but, you know, that is something that we can grow over, and it can invite a lot more blessings and abundance into our life, being willing to open up and accept and trust again. And once again, I speak from personal experience with that, so I can at least, you know, that's something that I, you know, pile number ones, I can empathize with. But yep. And then happiness is freedom from fear. I think that's kind of like your emotional energy card. Whenever you feel fear or a negative emotion, pile number ones, in terms of patterns that are still happening in your family that are negative, trust your emotions, especially the emotion of fear. So, in any time that you feel fearful, or anytime you feel like a negative emotion, that's an indicator that something is kind of afoot, right? At least, especially if it's like a repeated, you know, like say there's a family member that you have that always makes you fearful of something. That's kind of an indicator that maybe they're not necessarily the most supportive, loving family member. And that's one way you can tell reality from illusion is, you know, people that make you happy, people that try to make you happy, you know, people that don't make you feel fearful usually have the best intentions for you. And people that do make you feel fear or other negative emotions repeatedly usually don't have the best intentions for you. So that's one way of distinguishing between the illusions of what is real love and what is not, right? And then as for your tarot cards here, the Hanged Man is all about perspectives. I think that's just we're seeing things from a new perspective here, especially because he's flipped upside down, right? I think that's just a connected message to what we've been talking about so far about, you know, flip the way that you see receiving support and love. Be more willing to accept support and love, you know. And I'm not saying this, you know, and your ancestors aren't saying this to, once again, wag a finger at you. But sometimes I think there might be an inclination to immediately just assume the worst because of your experiences. So it's not like I'm not blaming you, and your ancestors aren't blaming you for that. But if you're willing to look at something with a more optimistic bent, it can help you heal from this and help you. Because, you know, the more you accept genuine love and support from others, the more it trains your brain into realizing, oh, there are people out there that do have good intentions and do want to offer me love and support, right? But if we automatically reject that right away, we'll never know. We'll just always kind of have those priming experiences from our younger years. And then if we reject love, honest, genuine love, the rest of our lives, well, how are we ever going to know better, right? And like I said, with the Six of Wands reversed, when I pulled it out, same advice of look how far you've already come, you know, especially in combination with your do the work card. And Five of Pentacles is interesting. That's the card of poverty. That's the card of an institution not serving us. So I guess I would say look and analyze at areas of your family that still aren't serving your family and or you specifically. Pay attention to that. There might be things that you haven't noticed yet necessarily because of a lot of this not being able to tell reality from illusion here with the moon, because of things like gaslighting, right? It's not your fault, it's at all, but it's just like really paying attention to what makes you feel in poverty in your family. And I don't mean that like money, even though that can be an aspect, right? Especially with alcoholism, if that's an issue in your family. But what makes you feel poverty in terms of love? What makes you feel poverty in terms of the way that others in your family make you feel, you know, and generally like in your family, analyzing other people in your family, like the way that they've reacted to this too. Yeah, that type of thing. So I guess I would say that's more like pay attention to where you feel emotional poverty, and that's an indicator of what's genuine love and what's gaslighting and what's good for you and what's not good for you, I guess is how I would put it as the ancestors' advice to you, or your ancestors' advice, I should say. Yeah, just so to summarize for your advice, pile number ones, you're doing great work already, or your family already has done great work. I think you're just on the cusp of fixing it or breaking it. Keep looking at things optimistically. Pay attention to your emotions, because they will help guide you through what's illusion of love and what's real love and support, right? And really focus on and clap, pat yourself on the back for how far you've already come and how far your family has already come, okay? So optimism, pay attention to your emotions, and be open to receiving support and love, okay? So pile number ones, I hope that reading was helpful for you. As always, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye. Hello, my lovely pile number twos. Welcome to your pick a card reading today that is all about breaking negative family patterns and your ancestors' advice on how to do that. As you recall, the card used to pick your pile was the card Nature. All right, so we have a female figure here amongst, it looks like poppies are the flowers. This one looks like a dandelion over here. Some question about what is nature and what is not. Maybe a battle between nature versus nurture here with your family. Before I go too deep into that, of course, I'm going to get to your other cards to get the full picture before I elaborate. As always, my reading is in two sections. Section number one will be talking about what the negative family pattern is. And section number two will be advice from your ancestors on how to break that family pattern, or at least kind of heal and or cope from it, right? So I'll put your advice down here with me. We'll talk about that more towards the end. And let's first look at your oracle cards and then draw some tarot cards on what the negative family pattern is. So, the Dark Mirror Oracle for you today is Revenge, number 23. Maybe some bitterness. Probably justified bitterness. Let's see what else pops out. We have from your archetypes, I'm just going to talk about the shadow attribute because we are talking about a negative family pattern, right? So you got Goddess, and the shadow attribute is exploitation of the female nature and form. So this might be a family pattern about how the feminine people in your family were treated, or still are. I definitely see something with the woman of your family, the feminine energies, etc. And then your Lantern Oracle here is 29, Radical Self-Acceptance. You are perceived the way you perceive yourself. Yeah, this seems to me maybe a feminine self-esteem sort of theme here, pile number twos. Definitely a lot of feminine figures, feminine energy. Yep, how a woman in your family have been treated, how feminine energies. Let's see what your tarot cards are, though, before I elaborate more. Spirit, for my pile number twos, could you give me some cards, 3 to 4 of them, explaining what the negative family patterns of pile 2 are, that their ancestors want to give them advice on? Alright, thank you. We have, this one for sure is popping out, we have the 9 of Wands reversed. You know, pile number 1's got that, but upright. Feeling like you're fighting a losing battle. Feeling like you just have to put up with it. We have Knight of Cups reversed. Interesting. Not being able to act on emotions. Feeling like we gotta stuff it down. Okay. I also get the sense of some sort of exploitation here, pile number 2s. I won't go too in depth with that because obviously that wanders into some dark topics, but I get the sense of exploitation of some sort. Okay. We also have the Emperor reversed. Yeah, so the Emperor is normally the masculine energy. It is masculinity, authority, logic, structure. Reversed, it's negative masculine energy. Yeah, even before I pulled that card out, pile number 2s, from what I'm seeing from Spirit here, there definitely is some aspect of the way that the masculine energy of your family treats the feminine energy of your family. I don't know if there was a pattern of a lot of the woman being abused. That's kind of what I'm seeing here. Especially with, like I said, the word exploitation came to mind intuitively. I won't go too in depth on that, of course, but you know, everyone watching kind of understands what that is, right? And I think especially pile number twos, though, besides that part, it did manifest in not only a lot of bitterness and feelings of wanting revenge because of, you know, the negative effects that this negative masculine energy has had on your family. But also, I think it's had an effect on self-esteem. So I don't know if a lot of the feminine people in your family have issues with self-esteem. You know, not only do we have goddess here with the shadow attribute of exploitation of the female nature and form, that's probably why exploitation came to mind with that card. Yeah. Being exploited. But yeah, self-esteem to you here with radical self-acceptance. Feeling like the women in your family weren't treated very well over generations. Because a lot of the way that we treat people of certain genders, our parents are kind of the example, or like other family members are kind of the example of how that, like, we understand what's to be right and what's wrong with that. So pile twos, it's almost like in your family this negative pattern is of generations of the men not treating the woman very well, and or like you know, depending on your culture or your country too, you know. Well, now we're getting kind of into a feminism thing here, but it's like, it depends on your culture, but at least to my understanding, like back in my own personal family, I'm just going to talk for just a second here because this is just what I know, right? Like, in my culturally, in my family, like if a woman wasn't married by a certain age, she was considered a spinster, right? And considered a burden on her family. So there was a female ancestor of mine who did, I think, just married a man that was both an alcoholic and abusive, because that was basically all she had available to her, because that's just what society taught her, right? So it's almost kind of like the sacrifice of the feminine self to what society tells woman in your family to do, or what's normal, or what's accepted, or what you're supposed to do as a woman, quote unquote. But also just self-esteem too, like if you don't have this, you know, this feminine trait, or you're not, you know, if you're not, you know, pleasing to the masculine eye, you know, which shouldn't even matter, because what matters is if you're pleasing to yourself, right? You know, if you're confident in yourself and if you feel comfortable with yourself, you know, that's what matters most, right? So there could be some sort of like a sexuality aspect of it there too, in terms of beauty. Maybe pressure to feel beautiful in your family on feminine members of your family, pressure to conform with feminine things, pressure to conform to feminine expectations, right? And that kind of harbors, I think, or created a lot of bitterness here with revenge. So I don't know if maybe there was an aspect too of some of the women in your family getting back at people for that, or wanting to. It depends, but yeah. So yeah, so with Nine of Wands, also too, maybe a lot of the feminine energy in your family has been kind of beaten down. Nine of Wands reversed is all about, normally it's about having the strength to continue after being besieged. Reversed, it's wanting to give up or just giving in. Feeling like being, you know, like you can't fight back, or it's been so long and you've been fighting back for so long, like what's the point? Like, you know, at least that type of thinking, right? Same thing with Knight of Cups reversed, or similar message with, feeling like you can't express yourself emotionally, feeling like you can't act on your own emotions, like, you know, almost kind of like not being allowed to feel things, in a way, is how I would describe the Knight of Cups reversed, pile number twos. Yeah. Exploitation, yeah. Of the female nature and form. So I'm looking back at your Archetypes card. Yeah, so that probably wasn't intuitive. I probably got exploitation after I was reading this card, but yeah. Just in general, though, like, feminine members of your family not being respected, not being, maybe having self-esteem issues because of it, expectations of beauty and conformity to society, and conformity to male expectations, especially with the Emperor reversed in your spread here. Because the Emperor is all about masculine energy, but reversed, it's negative masculinity, right? Same thing if, you know, the Empress reversed popped up, it would have been like negative femininity, right? Yeah, and nature too. I almost get the sense here too, you know, obviously this also depends on, you know, timing your generation, your culture too. But with your nature card, the pile leader that you picked, it's almost like there were things said in your family about the feminine members about like, oh, well, it's in female nature to ABC. So it was like an expectation of like Jesus just having to be like an object to be used, or like just a lot of like how do I put it? I'm trying to be very kind about it, but just not a lot of respect for female independence and feminine nature here. Yeah, that's what I'm seeing, especially in combination with the Emperor reversed. Maybe even some abusive men in your family because of the Emperor reversed. But yeah, not fun stuff, right? Not good at all. But unfortunately, you know, yeah. Sorry, trying to put things kindly, right? A little bit of a darker reading, but tarot is good for healing and growing and helping get advice from ancestors on how to overcome this or heal from it, right? Yeah, okay, so let's get to the advice part of your reading, pile number 2s. Or actually, I do want to pull one more card on negative patterns before I get to your advice here. Spirit ancestors of pile number 2s. Can you give me one more tarot card for them, explaining what the negative patterns are or more aspects of it? All right, we'll take this one. The Tower reversed, yep. I think almost, once again, depending on your culture, but the Tower reverse is about things that need to come down or patterns that need to break, built on shaky foundations that haven't been torn down yet. I think almost maybe your family had expectations that were past what society, what's the best way to put that? Your family had expectations for feminine members long past what was socially accepted for, or what was what's the best way to put that? So for an example, here where I live in the United States, right? Because every culture is different, but here in the United States, you know, my great-grandmother, for example, that was who I was talking about, where she was a spinster, technically, quote unquote. And she was expected, you know, hey, you're at a certain age, you should get married, and the only man available to her at the time was the boy next door, who was basically probably an abusive, but at least a drunk, right? But that, thankfully, that died out in my family. That expectation of woman died out, you know, by my grandmother's generation, so her daughter, right? But I think with your family, where I'm getting with this is that your family, things like that might have carried into modern day more than other families. That's kind of what I'm trying to illustrate here. So it's like things that normally would have fallen down or been broken apart to rebuild better haven't fallen down as quickly as other families, or like patterns haven't been busted or let go of that were negative as quickly as they should have been, I guess is what I would say with the Tower reversed here, pile number 2s. Yep. And like I said too, self-esteem here with radical self-acceptance. Oh, sorry, there's a cat hair here. I always get cat hair on my tarot cloth. Uh-oh. Yeah. Self-esteem issues because of it. Woman being put upon, woman being expected things of them that aren't, you know, pressures like that, right? So let's get to your advice section, pile number 2s. Yeah, a lot of about gender in this negative family pattern here, unfortunately. I'll keep your pile leader on the desk here. I'm going to shuffle your tarot cards. 1 second, sorry for the pause. We'll get advice from your ancestors on how to break these patterns or how to heal. So let's look at your oracle cards first. We have your surrender card. Surrender negative thinking. You have control over your thoughts. When negative thoughts surface, say thank you for sharing and quickly refocus on positive affirmations. That's probably with the self-esteem pile number 2s. Likely people in your family, especially feminine energies, maybe perhaps yourself as well. If you've got self-esteem issues, well, number 1, I recommend therapy. Therapy's great for things like that. As much as I love tarot, I think for things like this, therapy is, you know, number 1 avenue to go to. But in general, I can say here with this card, one of your ancestors' advice is or one piece of their advice is to surrender negative thinking, especially about yourself, is what I'm picking up intuitively. If you struggle from self-esteem issues, you know, think of yourself more positively. One method I always have heard is great is to look into a mirror every day, as corny as this sounds. But look into a mirror every single day and find something about yourself physically or emotionally or in terms of your skills that you like. So like, for example, one day you might be like, wow, I really like the color of my hair today. Or the next day you might be like, wow, I did really good on that project at work. You know, keep thinking positively about yourself and repeating it. Especially if there's self-esteem issues here, especially because like I was saying, with the way I think feminine people energies have been treated in your family, that self-esteem is probably low because of that. So that's one way from your ancestors are saying to help break that pattern of the self-esteem issue of negative thinking, right? And then your angel card is honesty and communication, okay? Oh boy, we'll get to that in a second. Your healing spirits is you are your purpose. Don't let people in your family tell you what is your purpose, especially if it comes to like gender-related things, but in general too. You are your purpose. You're the one directing the boat, navigating the boat of your own life. You decide your life. It's not theirs to live. Okay, and then we have the Knight of Pentacles here from the Pastoral Tarot. Enjoying the fruits of your labor. I was going to say labor. Seeing how far you've come, enjoying the things that you've had. I don't know if maybe you're not necessarily interested in being married, pile number 2s. Because sometimes I can kind of see this as a card of enjoying the things that you've done on your own. And or if you have been single for a long time, or you're looking for marriage but you haven't gotten married yet, maybe there's a pressure in your family to get married. This is one piece of advice here too. To not let yourself get down about it, because your value isn't in your relationship to a man, or well, it could be a woman too, it depends, but your value, I guess I'll rephrase that. Your value isn't in your relationship to other people. Your value is in the things that you have done yourself, right? That's what the Nine of Pentacles is all about, is the fruits of your own labor. I mean, because, for example, here, she's got a vineyard behind her, right? I mean, she's had to do a lot of tending and a lot of training with this hawk, too. A lot of gardening. And finally, everything is seeming to bloom. So she's appreciating the things that she's done, okay? Alright, and then, sorry, I'm going to cover some of your other cards here, because I do need to make room for your other tarot cards. Spirit, for pile number 2s, can you give me some advice for them based from their ancestors on how to break these family patterns, or how to heal? We have Ace of Cups, okay. Exploring new emotions, new ways to feel about something, okay. We have the Six of Swords, making a way, distance, okay. And we have the Five of Pentacles. You know, pile number 1's had that card too. Poverty, or lack of trust in authority or institutions that have failed us, right? Okay, so pile number 2s. Your advice, number 1, we already talked about surrender negative thinking. I think that's to do with your self-esteem thing we were talking about earlier in your family. Also, the Nine of Pentacles kind of ties into that, into really respecting and applauding yourself for the fruits of your labor, all the hard work you put in. You know, like I said, your value is not in your relationship or your usefulness to others. Your value is in how far you've come, you know, the things that you've done yourself that you can be proud of, right? How good you are, you know, in terms of both morality and in terms of the things that you're good at. You know, because deep down, I mean, we're all beautiful inside, you know, and I know you're going to say, oh, that's cliche, that's corny, but it's true. You know, depending on your beliefs, but at least in my personal beliefs, you know, we're all a little piece of God, right? Spirit. And that can never be ugly, okay? So, yep. Let's see what else pops out here. Pile 2s. You are your purpose. Same thing too. Maybe there's pressure in your family to follow what other people tell you to do intuitively. As I pulled out the card, I was getting a message about especially with you or your purpose, like you deciding the course of your own life. It's not their life to live, it's yours. So don't be afraid, you know, especially if it is something about breaking away from a family pattern that's negative and there's pressure not to break away anyways, because you already know this family pattern, this negative thing is not serving me anymore. Or this is the direction I want to take my life. And if, you know, if it's a positive thing for you, like why would anyone in your family want to make you unhappy? So unfortunately, you know, like I said, sometimes families can be controlling. But this is an encouragement from your ancestors here to follow your own purpose and follow your own direction in life with your purpose, right? Let's see what else pops out here. All right, and this is why, okay, so let's get to your angel guide card here. Honesty and communication. So, pile number 2s. The reason I think I giggled a little bit when I first pulled that out, or I said, oh my. Whenever this negative pattern comes up in your family, especially, like I was saying, I think most of it has to do with the way that feminine energies are treated in your family. Be honest and open and unashamed about pointing it out, okay? Honesty and communication. Like, if someone is saying something to you, like, what's a toxic thing that pops up a lot with feminine energies? Like if you're at a family gathering and you're eating something delicious, and someone says to you, "Oh, you better not eat that. You'll get fat." Like that happens a lot, you know, to women. I know. Be honest and say, "I'm eating it anyways." Be bold. Your ancestors are telling you not to, because I think part of it is some of this negative pattern might break if someone in your family is finally bold enough to say no and put a stop to it and say, "I don't care." You know, as hard as that is, because, you know, you don't want to rock the boat, and I'm sure you love your family, but, you know, maybe as much as there's negative patterns, right? But this is throat chakra. This is be bold, be honest, communicate. This makes me feel this way. I'm doing it this way. I'm directing my own life. I can make my own choices. You know, I don't need to conform to what you're telling me to conform to, that type of thing. You know, or if, like, let's say you make a career change and someone says to you, "Oh, well, that's not really a feminine career," you know, especially if gender pops up, right? Or if someone says to you something like, "Oh, well, I don't think you'd be good enough for that," boldly tell them, I'll just say, like, okay, well, don't say STFU, but effectively, politely tell them STFU. I'll just say it boldly, right? That's kind of why I had that reaction when I first pulled out that card. Your ancestors are just telling you to call them out on it. Because the more they're called out on it and the more that they're shamed when they do things like that are sneaky, and honestly, I'll just say it's shitty. The more they're called out, the more shame they'll feel, and the more that they'll start to understand, oh, this isn't acceptable. Because I think it's just that maybe someone in your family hasn't been bold enough to rock the boat yet, and that's why. You know, and unfortunately, yeah, it might ruffle some feathers, but, you know, sometimes you gotta ruffle feathers, right? Just to get people to either A, leave you alone, or B, accept that you're an independently functioning human being and can make your own choices, and you don't need them to, you know, guide you unless you ask, right? Yeah, and then Six of Swords too. That tells to me, pile number 2 is, this is a card of distancing. Six of Swords is about moving on somewhere. Like this figure, she's riding on a swan flying away from the darkness below, right? I don't know if it would be helpful for you to physically distance yourself from your family, or at least negative members of your family, as much as you can. Of course, in a tarot reading, I don't want to necessarily advise, you know, breaking away from your family. You know that the viability, or the I guess I would just say, yeah, you know the viability of that more than anyone. General reading, everyone's going to be a bit different, but if you're really feeling that maybe being away from, you know, the negative people in your family would be a good idea, I think your ancestors are saying, yeah, try to distance yourself physically here with the Six of Swords from people that do these things to you in your family, and or, you know, help other people in your family that are victims of this to move away from this energy. Have that boundary of, if you're going to treat me this way, you don't get my time. So, you know, of course, you know, if you do openly say something like, "Hey, don't say that," or "I'm going to do what I want anyways," and then they back off finally and they're like, "Oh, sorry," like that's fine. You know, you don't have to, like, physically, as long as they're willing to change. But people that aren't willing to change, sometimes the best thing you can do in that situation is just to physically distance yourself from them. Of course, you as the reader, or not the reader, excuse me, the querent will know in your own individual situation where that's applicable. But, and then the Ace of Cups, exploring new emotions. Don't be afraid to explore new territories in terms of the way that you feel. Don't stuff emotions down. And then with the Five of Pentacles here, it's all about, like I said, either poverty or an institution failing you. Let me try to read that here for this advice. Actually, I'm going to ask Spirit if they can give me one more card with the Five of Pentacles to kind of explain more, because typically, like I said, it's poverty, but we're not talking about like material lack here, right? Spirit, Ancestors of pile number 2s, can you give me a little bit of a explanation on the Five of Pentacles? What's the poverty here? Some clarification, please. We have the Sun. Happiness, clarity. Let's see. Oh, okay. Now I get it. It clicked. Pile number 2s. Where you feel happy in life, don't feel like you have to deprive yourself just because of the expectations of others in your family. And same thing with other people in your family that are victims of this, encourage them to do the same. So whatever makes you happy, whatever brings light into your life, pile number 2s, with the Sun here, whatever brings clarity and happiness, that is your key. Don't let yourself be brought into a poverty of any sort. So it doesn't just mean money. It can mean poverty of happiness. It can mean lack of direction or feeling like you have power over your own life. Follow your heart. Follow what makes you happy, okay? Don't be sad just to please your family. Just because it's what they want for you, I guess is how I would put that, okay? Alright, let's see if there's any other pieces of advice here. Pile number 2s. Yeah, a lot of feminine energy here with this reading, like especially we were talking about earlier with the first cards, but yeah, okay. Well, pile number 2s, I hope that reading was helpful for you. As always, I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye. Hello, my lovely pile number 3s. Welcome to your pick a card reading today that is all about breaking a negative family pattern and or patterns if there's more than one, and Ancestors' advice on how to do that. As you recall, the card used to pick your pile was the card Expression. So intuitively right off the bat, I'm getting the sense of having to hide something, or feeling like you have to hide something, the way you express things. Keeping silent on things might be some sort of pattern, but we'll see more details with your other cards. As always, I kind of have different sections to this reading, so section number 1 will be explaining what the negative patterns are in your family that Ancestors want to speak to you about. And section number 2 will be advice from your Ancestors on how to break, cope, and or kind of heal from those things. So I'm just going to set your advice cards down here with me just for the interim. And first, let's speak about what the negative family patterns are. So let's set your pile leader down here and get your other cards on the table. So card number 1, Dark Mirror Oracle, we have the child I was meant to be, number 8. Okay, so maybe some childhood issues. We'll see what else pops out. Mourning the loss of childhood. Okay. And then your archetypes card, I'm only going to read the shadow attribute because we are just talking about, like, to describe a negative thing here, right? So your archetypes for your family here was Child Eternal. So another kind of child theme here. Shadow attributes, inability to grow up and be responsible, extreme dependency on others for physical security. Okay. So I'm already seeing in your family a pattern of a loss of childhood for some, and or for others, irresponsibility. It could have been you had parents and or their parents were irresponsible in some way when it came to being an adult. That's kind of what Child Eternal with the negative attributes talks about. And then your Lantern Oracle is, the Generations card. Number 40, Inner Integration. There is peace, equilibrium, and fulfillment in integrating the inner wild with the taming and tempering effect life has on us. So kind of like what I was saying before, pile number 3 is there's some negative pattern in your family regarding, how do I put it? I'll just put it bluntly. There's an issue in your family with some people not knowing how to grow up. I guess is how I would put it very bluntly. Especially because this card here is about I can see, like I said, when I first pulled it out, you know, the card of generations, it looks almost like different women in different generations in their family, right? It also is a card of one woman at different generations of her life or different ages. So, you know, young adult, middle-aged, elderly, right? Or older. And it's about integrating lessons from earlier in our life into later stages in our life, right? And kind of combining the wisdom from all different stages. That combined with your other cards here with inability to grow up, dependency on others for physical security, the child I was meant to be. There's a lot of issues here I'm seeing with the negative patterns of, like I said, people not being able to grow up. And so that leads to them not being responsible as adults, right? Maybe a little bit of a stunted growth because of things that happen in their childhood. I'm not necessarily like blaming them for it, because a lot of times when that happens, there's abuse in the background or some emotional or mental illness reason for those things, right? But I do see that pattern here. It could also be general inner child work that needs to be done here with the child I was meant to be. Also, what is that called? I'm not trained in psychology, so I want to be careful as I speak on this. Oh, parentification. So parentification is another thing that popped up in my mind intuitively, pile number 3, is where this is where, especially with your Dark Mirror Oracle card, a child is treated like a parent by a parent. So for example, like, in my own family, there was a member who, in their immediate family, the mother wouldn't cook food. And so that daughter had to cook all of the food for her younger siblings. So she kind of had to act like a parent because her parent wasn't being the parent to her and her siblings. So that's what, like, an example of parentification I can say from someone in my extended family. That was an issue, right? So perhaps there's a pattern here of children having to be the parents, having to grow up too fast, and then other people that didn't grow up fast enough or didn't grow up at all. And the exchange of those energies of children having to parent and parents not being parenting enough, I guess is how I would put that. Could also be issues with family members who, or a family pattern of doing things in their life that belong to a younger age. You know, I always profess the value of never fear of coming off childish, you know, of course, to a balanced extent. Like, for example, like if you're an adult and you like to play video games, for example. I play video games personally, you know, or, you know, like, let's say you like to watch a cartoon. You know, some adults might be like, oh, ew, you're watching a cartoon, you're too old for that, or reading fantasy books or something like that, etc. Like, that's good. That you can do that in balance, but I see here like a negative balance of someone doing something far longer into their adulthood than they should have. Like, the one example intuitive that was coming out was maybe a pattern of people that partied hard a lot more longer into their life than most people do. You know, most people get into their 20s, they party, you know, rah, 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 especially at college, you know, drinking, partying, doing all that fun stuff or whatever's fun for them. But perhaps part of this parentification or this issue of the child having to be the parent was because the parent was off having too much fun, quote unquote. That type of thing. Just a lack of responsibility and children not having a childhood because they had to step up to the plate. Here's what I'm seeing, pile number 3. Okay. And then let's get your other tarot cards on the desk here from your ancestors and spirit. Spirit ancestors of pile 3, can you tell me a little bit more about the negative patterns in pile number 3's family that you want to address today? Yeah, this kind of screams parentification all over the board here. People not being responsible enough. Maybe even absent parents. I don't know if maybe there's been issues in your family with parents who are just absent. You know, a parent that ran off and never came back, that type of thing. The 8 of Cups, well, what was I just telling you? 8 of Cups, right as I was saying, oh, maybe a parent ran off. That shouldn't have. 8 of Cups is usually about emotionally moving on. 8 of Cups reversed is... It could mean some parents stayed in bad relationships, and so that had an effect on the children, or you, if this personally affected you. Not moving on emotionally, the 8 of Cups, though negatively reversed, can also mean someone that moved emotionally distanced themselves in a negative way. So yeah, definitely That's kind of why I chuckled, because right as I was saying it, that card came out. We also have Three of Cups, social gatherings, social development. Let's see what else pops out. We have the Hierophant, traditions, could mean religion as well. Yeah, pile number 3 is, so parentification, we talked about people not acting their age. Yeah, definitely one thing about people being too emotionally distant in some way. Three of Cups is interesting, though. That can also mean the party card. Oh, that's why it popped out. Okay, that's kind of what I was saying before. Like, maybe there was an issue in your family with people that, you know, instead of being responsible adults, they just went out and had fun instead of taking care of their children, right? The Three of Cups can mean the party card, you know, even like drinking too, with it being cups too. Social gathering. So too much of a focus on the social and not so much at home, is a negative pattern. Partying too hard, perfect card. That kind of, you know, that happens a lot with tarot reading synchronicity, where I'm saying something and then the card pops out. As you saw here with the Eight of Cups and then the Three of Cups, right? And then the Hierophant too is, like I said, authority, tradition, could mean religion here. Yeah, I think this is something that has happened for many, many generations. Pile number 3 is also just inner integration being next to it of the different generations. The cogs turning in the wheel of your machine. This is something kind of, or I should say, the cogs turning in the machine of your family. Something that just keeps churning and churning. And the Hierophant too is patterns, traditions passed down. Definitely something that, as something negative, it exists because it's been passed down for so long. Could also be, it might be like pile number 1, so there's a little bit of alcoholism here with the Three of Cups as part of it. I just see partying too hard is one thing. And then, yeah, expression too. You know, I almost kind of see this card as someone drowning. Hence she's got kind of like the veil over her face and her lips are obscured. So I think, you know, drinking with drowning as well. Drinking too much, right? Also just expression being the card of not feeling like you can express yourself, feeling like you have to stifle yourself, a little bit of blocked throat chakra energy. A lot of, you know, there might have been some sentiment here I'm hearing intuitively of children are meant to be seen, not heard. Maybe some issues in your family of not letting children speak up about things that are going on, especially if there was parentification going on. Like, there could have been a child that was like, you know, hey, mom and dad, like, can you not go out drinking tonight and help me with my homework? And then there might have been backlash based on that, right? Just asking parents to be responsible adults who just weren't being responsible adults, right? Being children far too late in life, right? And children having to grow up too fast. Yeah. Yeah, partying way too hard. Might have even been a little bit into drugs too, hence with the Three of Cups. Like I said, I typically see that as like drinking. But with parties too, people that party a lot, drugs could be involved as well. Yeah, and then just especially too with the Eight of Cups, it's like drowning in drink. But emotionally moving on is typically what that means, yeah. But just not being responsible. Life's a party. You know, screw responsibilities. That's kind of the imagery I'm seeing here from the negative pattern. That type of thing. Pile number 3. I'm going to ask them to give me one more card here too. Spirit, Ancestors of pile 3s, can you give me one more card explaining the negative patterns in pile number 3's family? Okay, that one almost popped out. We'll see. Drinking, partying, children having to be parents. Not good. Okay. We also have the Lovers reversed. Maybe negative romantic relationships. Definitely with the Lovers reversed, it's relationships not working out. There could have been a lot of divorce in your family as well. That can be that meaning of that card reversed in this type of reading. Lovers reversed, romance not working out. Maybe because of a lot of these issues, it led to struggles in relationships. You know, if this personally affected your immediate nuclear family, pile number 3s. Maybe your parents divorced because of issues like this. Maybe one parent wasn't responsible enough and the other one had to kind of shoulder too much burden, as well as the kids, you know, including you yourself. Yeah, not happy relationships here, pile number 3 with Lovers reversed. The Lovers can also mean choices we make. So with that interpretation, pile 3 it can also mean making bad choices here with the Lovers reversed, which, of course, when it comes to partying too hard, drugs, drinking too much, obviously those are bad choices, or making your kids be the parent. Bad choices across the board, right? That type of thing, yeah. There could have also been something to do with religion here with the Hierophant I'm seeing too. The Hierophant typically in the traditional, or like Tarot de Marseille, I believe is how you pronounce it. That version of the tarot deck, the Hierophant is le Pope, or the Pope, right? So kind of a structure of authority, structure of religion here. Could have been some issues with that too, pile number 3 is. Maybe too strict of a religion. Maybe that's why there was a rebellion and a little bit more into partying too hard, because maybe, like, for example, like, maybe it was that your grandparents were very strict, especially with religion, on your parents, and so your parents swung the way opposite way of partying too hard because of that. That's just an example of maybe how that could manifest itself, pile 3s in your family. But as a general reading, everyone's going to be a little bit different, of course, yeah. So to summarize, pile 3's parentification. People not growing up fast enough. There's such a thing as being nurturing a healthy inner child. Watch a cartoon once in a while. Read a book from childhood. Finger paint. Some cute things in balance like that. But sometimes it can be negative if we lean into being a child too much as an adult, because as an adult we have responsibilities, and I see the dropping of the ball on responsibilities here as a pattern in your family, especially in terms when it comes to how, like, raising children, right? That type of thing. Maybe some negative aspects with religion, partying too hard, relationships not working out, maybe some divorce here too with the Lovers reversed. And then expression too, alcoholism, especially with the 3 of Cups combined, and the 8 of Cups could have been an issue, and then also not feeling like you could express yourself as a child, having to hide the way that you felt. Or just children in your family feeling like they have to hide the way they feel. Not being able to express oneself. That type of thing. Alright, so let's get to the advice section of your reading, pile number 3s. Yep, a lot of heavy energy in these readings today. But that's normal with kind of family pattern readings, Tarot is much of a tool of prediction and happy things as it is for healing, right? Is a beautiful tool for healing, of course, in combination with, like, therapy, right? But okay, let's get to the advice section of your reading, pile 3s. The cards we talked about earlier, your surrender card here is surrender unhealthy relationships. Leading into that Lovers reversed I talked about earlier, I think. Let go of relationships that don't serve you, including unavailable or toxic people. You deserve to be treasured by others and to be surrounded by positive people. Okay, pile 3s. Piece of advice number 1 from your ancestors. In any areas of your life where a relationship is unhealthy, where you're unhappy, where someone is toxic or someone is unavailable to you, let them go. Also, that's advice to just anyone in your family too. Could have been a pattern because of these things of people imbibing in unhealthy relationships, staying in them too long, sacrificing their own happiness. Letting go of toxic or unavailable people. Okay, that's advice number 1, but we'll see what your other cards say. Your advice from angels is earth and ground. Earth and ground. The practical things of life. That could tie into the theme of partying too much. We'll see what else pops out here. A spiritual hug. Oh. Your ancestors would like to give you a hug, number 1. That's cute. That's very sweet. You're surrounded by a lot of support from your ancestors, pile number 3s. I think they understand what you've been going through. They've been watching over you a lot because of it. So even if you don't necessarily always sense them around you, pile 3s, I think they're around you a lot, giving you support, kind of hidden beneath the wings here with a spiritual hug. That's a comforting card from Spirit is how I would put it. We'll talk about that more later. And then we have the 4 of Cups. Apathy. Only paying attention to the negative and not to the positive. You can see there's one vase that hasn't, or one vase that has spilled, but she's only paying attention to that versus the other ones that haven't spilled. Okay. Sorry, some cards cover each other. You can always rewind, or I sometimes I hold them up too as I'm talking about them specifically. And then Spirit for pile 3s, can you give me cards of advice for this? Breaking these family patterns of parentification, that type of thing. Partying too much, adults not being responsible. Excuse me. Let's see, we have this one here, Ace of Wands. New passions. Okay. We have the Five of Swords reversed. Verbal conflicts, or shying away or breaking away from verbal conflicts. We'll see what else pops out here. And then we also have the World reversed. The lack of an end to something. Okay. We'll see what that says here in a second. A lot of green energy. Heart chakra. Heart chakra meditations might be helpful for you, pile number 3, I'm hearing. Opening your heart chakra. Okay, so number 1, like I said, piece of advice from your ancestors. We talked about this as I pulled it out, but we'll kind of reiterate. Surrender unhealthy relationships. So one piece of advice from your ancestors, pile 3, is when it comes to unhealthy relationships in your life and in the lives of others in your family, wherever they're unhealthy, let go. So, like it says, unavailable or toxic people, you deserve to be treated by others, or excuse me, to be treasured by others and to be surrounded by positive people, okay? By positive people. So that probably ties in here with the Four of Cups, because this Cups card is, you know, normally like the keyword for the Four of Cups is like apathy, but I almost see this version of the card as only paying attention to the negative, because you can see she's kind of pouting here just over the one that's spilt and not the other ones that are, she's not realizing that there's other ones around her. She's not paying attention that are still filled and they're just fine. So if you have people in your life or your family, pile number 3 is, that do tend to be overly negative that way, like they only see the negative side of things, you know, consider distancing a little bit, perhaps just for your own emotional health. Could be one piece of advice, pile 3s, especially like I said with that Four of Cups there being the only focusing on the negative, especially with unhealthy relationships. Yeah. So that's one key indicator, is where there's people in your life who just are just completely pessimistic. For your own emotional health, just distance yourself a bit, okay? Surrender those unhealthy relationships, okay? You deserve to be surrounded by positive people and positivity, kind of like that card was saying, okay? Advice number 2, like I said, I would look into heart chakra related things, heart chakra meditations, fantastic. Definitely with all the green here, and even in your angel card, there's kind of a heart symbolism around his heart. Yeah, and then also root chakra here with earth and ground. So yeah, look into heart and root chakra meditations, I would suggest, or I would look up advice articles on how to keep those chakras in balance or healthy, right? So root and heart, so the very base, and then also your heart, right? But earth and ground too, like I said, that might be related to the partying thing. I would say if there is an inclination in your family when it comes to imbibing in too much to drink or partying too much, or even perhaps drugs could be an issue in your family. I almost see your earth and ground card here as finding, especially with your Ace of Wands, because your Ace of Wands over here is like a new inspiration or new creativity is kind of how I always see Ace of Wands. So it's almost like finding, maybe like not you particularly, but in general in your family, try to find ways to replace negative behaviors. Like if drinking is an issue at your family gatherings, for example, maybe there is alcoholism issues, right? Try to find different avenues or different ways of spending time together that don't involve alcohol, especially here with the Five of Swords reversed, because that means like verbal conflicts. I don't know if maybe sometimes the alcoholism or too much drinking can lead to verbal fights in your family. That's one indicator here with this reading, with the Five of Swords being apparent, or being present, I guess I should say. Especially with earth and ground, it's almost like people in my life that have gotten over addictions like that, one thing that did help them has been being rooted in nature. So like, for example, like if there's a family gathering where like maybe normally you would have in the summer, like a family picnic where there's going to be alcohol involved, maybe try suggesting like, hey, instead of like drinking and then us getting into verbal fights here, you know, once we're all drunk with the Five of Swords reversed, let's instead go to like, I guess this depends on where you live, but in the US we have like national and state parks. Let's go to a state park and hike instead, and let's let it be about bonding in nature and with exercise, more healthy things with earthing and grounding, right? Instead of over like alcohol, for example. You know, not everything, you know, and of course, you know, some people might poo-poo it being dry, you know, they might be like, oh, I don't want, you know, a dry event or whatever, etc. Um, but they might find that they actually like it a lot better, because if we find ways to focus ourselves in more earthly grounded activities, like hiking, you know, which can be kind of meditative in and of itself. Meditation is another thing I would suggest maybe for your family to try, if they haven't done that, and or yourself, right? But also just finding like new creative passions too, to focus that energy of addiction into something more constructive, I guess, especially in terms of like nature, like hiking, like I said, or it could even be like fishing too. Maybe fishing is something your family's interested in. Or hunting could be another thing, you know, or creative passions here with the Ace of Wands. Of course, addictions are really hard to break. I always suggest, you know, if there is someone in your family that has addiction issues, getting professional help, number one, of course, is key, but supplementarily, I guess is how I would put that word. I think I pronounced it right. Yeah, things like nature, hiking, hunting, fishing, being rooted to the earth here, doing activities that get your family in touch with nature, right? Also too, like if there's some inner child work to be done, especially like if you were parentified as a child, pile number 3 is, nature can be really healing in that aspect of just overall everything in our life. I always kind of consider nature and hiking, that type of thing, being in nature is, our universe's greatest panacea or greatest medicine, in my personal opinion. But things like that. Also getting lost in creative passions here too. So if there's something creatively that you or people in your family have wanted to try, you know, maybe painting, maybe writing, maybe even writing about your experiences, you know, in your family, that can help us heal too. Processing through those things and writing them down can help us understand and can help us heal and grow and recover, I guess I would say. Also just don't be afraid to have fun in a way, pile number 3s, especially if you were parentified as a child. Indulge in some inner child stuff, like, you know, if there is a cartoon you want to watch, or if you want to finger paint, you know, or if you want to do like an easy bake oven thing or something, like, yeah, you know, as an adult, you know, might be like, maybe I'm a little bit too old for that, but things can be pretty healing, especially if we did have our childhood kind of taken from us, to finally give ourselves room to live the childhood that we maybe necessarily didn't get to have when we were young, right? And then here with the World reversed, that's all about bringing things to an end that need to come to an end. It's kind of like the Tower in that way, if you're familiar with the Tower card from Tarot, but I would say specifically the World is more about the end of a phase, but reversed, it's not quite there yet. So I think with your family, there's a little bit more work to be done, as there is in every family, so your family's not unique in that way, pile 3s, but you do have a lot of support around around you here, like I said, with your spiritual hug card from your ancestors. So I think they're always watching out for you. They're always around to help you and kind of support you, even if you don't necessarily always sense them, right? But, yeah, God, and that nature imagery, all that green again. So yeah, the phase isn't quite at the end yet here with the World reversed, but I think you're almost there with your family, or yeah, there's still work needs to be done. Like, they're kind of acknowledging that is how I would describe the World reversed, but I think, yeah, just try to stray away from verbal conflicts, try to stay away from situations that allow family members to, like if drinking is an issue, maybe suggest family gatherings that don't involve alcohol. Yeah, let's see if there's any other advice here, pile 3s. Yeah, all that green. Yeah, I definitely think nature is one very healing thing that could help you and your family, pile 3s. I know I've kind of reiterated that, so I won't repeat it again, but Yeah. Let's get just one more card on the table, pile threes, real quick here before we end the reading. Spirit, can you give me one more card for pile threes of advice? One more card, please. Okay, definitely. Well, the Lovers reversed came out there. That's kind of a reiteration. Sorry, it's a repeat, but it's a reiteration of the surrender and healthy relationships here, pile threes. So that's very doubly emphasized for you. Surrender unhealthy relationships. Wherever relationships aren't serving you, let them go. That's kind of what your surrender card already said. But yeah, just remember that your ancestors are around you, pile number 3. So they send you a hug here with spiritual hug. Yeah, and definitely creativity and nature are 2 very big healing things or creative passions I'm seeing here for you and your family. So as always, pile number 3s, I hope that reading was helpful for you. I wish you a wonderful rest of your day, and I hope to see you in the next reading. Bye.